Okay, guys. So another lesson for academic students, and this week we have another pie chart question. But the difference being is that we're looking at a pie chart with many categories. So just a reminder, the last time that we did a pie chart lesson, this was the question we had. So we just had 4 categories, and if you remember, I was kind of showing you how to kind of flesh out your details paragraphs when there was only going to be 2 paragraphs being discussed in each one. So today, what we're looking at then is this one, which has 7 categories. So obviously, this time you need to be a bit more strategic about, well, not more strategic, but strategic in the opposite direction. That this time you have more categories to deal with, so you need to make sure that you are not going way over the word limit. So you need to kind of keep that in mind when you are writing the essay. So, as always, you're going to paraphrase the question first. So here in red we have the charts below show the average spending for British households in 1971 and 2001. Last week we did a lot of work on the years, so be careful with that this week. So it'll just be the the pie charts illustrate the average amount spent by households in Britain for 1971 and 2001, something like that. So obviously it's not going to be exactly those words. It doesn't have to be exactly any words, just as long as you're not copying the question completely. So analyze the question. So same as last time, you've only got 2 pie charts, and they're both containing the same information from different years. So sometimes you'll have 4 pie charts, 5 pie charts, so obviously the way you deal with that is differently. And if the categories in the pie charts aren't the same, then obviously you can't make these comparisons. But all I'm going to do is look for which ones increased and which ones decreased. If you want to kind of make an extra little star, or like if you want to put the arrow in bold for the ones that increase the most and the ones that decrease the most, that's fine. But basically, you just want to like annotate, make little notes on the question paper to make sure that when you're writing the essay and you're coming back to look, that you will remember exactly what has gone up and what has gone down from the notes you've made, so that you don't have to go and start analysing the chart a second time. Make sure that you've made all the notes you want to make before you start the question. Then the overview. So basically, I'm just going to categorize which ones went up and which ones went down. Now, because like I said earlier on, there are 7 categories, it would take quite a few words to say each one in the overview. So like for example, if you were to say between 1971 and 2001, or overall between 1971 and 2001, there was an increase in the percentage spent on cars, restaurants and computers, while there was a decrease in the percentage of food, books, furniture and petrol. So that takes quite a few words to say that. I mean, again, it's an accurate overview. But what you might want to do is just tidy it up. So you want to make reference to all of them. But what you could say would be something like, overall, of the 7 categories shown in the charts, cars, restaurants and computers are the only ones that increased. So then, by saying they're the only ones that increased, we know that the other 4 categories decreased. So you just kind of need to be aware of kind of like the different way you can structure information without having to actually name each individual one in each instance. So that would be my overview. Now, I always try to keep my details paragraphs in the same order as my overview. Basically, I want to keep the categories in the same order, so I just put the first details paragraph is the 3 categories that increased, and the second details paragraph is the 4 that decreased. So just to kind of give you a bit more detail, what I want to focus on is the details paragraph, and because we're dealing with more categories, I want to deal with the second details paragraph because that has 4 categories, that's the one with the most. So I just want to show you my own example of that. But what you need to consider is that it's a comparative essay, so you still need to make some comparisons, but at the same time, you can't go into as much detail as we did in the previous pie chart demo lesson. So, I mean, it's basically saying everything you need to say without adding anything extra. And when you consider there are 7 categories in 1971, 7 categories in 2001, so really you don't want to include every single percentage, and you need to think of a way around having your details paragraphs too long. So it's the problem is with time, so we don't want to write very, very long details paragraphs. So, sorry, back to the second details paragraph that I'm going to look into. What we have is food, books, petrol and furniture. And if I was to relate every single percentage from both graphs, I would end up with 8 percentages, and again, it's overkill. So I'll just show you what I've done here. I said among the 4 categories of household spending that decreased, food had the most dramatic decrease from 44% in 1971 to 14% in 2001. Okay, so I pretty much said what the categories are, so the 4 that have decreased is what I'm going to be talking about here. And then I said that food had the most dramatic. So basically I'm just pointing out that this is the most significant one, so I'm going to give that a bit of extra attention, and I've given the percentage for both years. But in the next part, what I've done is I've just done a small bit of math, and I've discussed what the difference was between the charts, rather than what the original figure was in 1971 and then what the figure was in 2001. So books had the next highest reduction in percentage and fell by 5%, however petrol and furniture dropped by only 2% and 1% respectively. So here I've mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 percentages instead of 8, and that just means that my paragraph is compact enough that I'm not wasting too much time writing it. So that's just something that you should consider when you're writing your own. So next up then, I have a question for you here, and I want you to do the same thing. This one you have 8 categories, so it's a little bit more of a challenge for you guys. But as normal, just write your answers and put them in the comments below, and tomorrow I'll be back to you all with your global feedback. Okay, thank you all. Bye-bye now.